And we are live for another episode of the Blue Eyed Devil podcast, streaming on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, which is now just YouTube. It is good to be back on the air again for another episode, and it is always good to welcome a new guest. Today, we have a graduate of Penn, Duke, and NYU, a global citizen who has lived in Nigeria, Ghana, the United Kingdom, the States, and now resides here in Toronto. Tegan Mosugu, welcome.
Welcome, David. Nice to meet you.
It's very good to have you here, my friend.
Good to have you here, too.
Feels like this has been a little bit of work in the making for us.
Yeah, we've been talking for a while, so now it's good to be all here.
Tell me about yourself. Let's do a quick intro of Tegan. Who is Tegan?
Tegan is a brother. He's a son. He's a good friend. Mm-hmm. Tegan has a global perspective. Tegan is all about doing unto others as you want them to do unto you. Tegan has had a lived experience like no other, has had some nice accomplishments also, very ambitious, very determined, but also very much focused about having impact. And Tegan loves talk.
We have lots in common there, frankly. Yeah. We do. Both born in other countries, guests in this one. Mm-hmm. I became a citizen in the late 80s. I don't know about yourself. I think...
I'm back and forth
considering
with
Canadian, yeah. And but the global perspective is the piece that resonates with me, because having living in one of the most multicultural cities in the world, which we do in Toronto, we get to eat, experience, and talk out issues that have perspectives from places that most people don't ever get to engage with, right? And not only can you engage with those perspectives, you've actually lived them, right? What does it mean to be a global citizen today?
Good question. Being a global citizen is not just about where you've been to, it's also about your perspective. So let's say, for example, somebody may live in or come from Sudan. Mm-hmm. I may not know about Sudan or ever been to Sudan, but there's a cultural sense of respect, and appreciation. So it's all about having this notion that you and I can have differences, but at the end of the day, even if I don't know your experience, I can respect you and have a conversation with you. We can disagree to agree, or agree to disagree rather, but we can still have common middle ground.
So important.
Very important.
So important, especially in a city like ours.
Especially in these days whereby politics, culture, everything is divisive.
Yes.
We find more differences than actually similarities. And why can't we understand that we are all human beings regardless of your background, economic status, education, all of that?
One of the new pioneer services in the city of Toronto is the 4th Emergency Service, the Toronto Community Crisis Service, which has been commissioned to respond to 911 calls over the last couple of years, often ahead of police enforcement, because of the cultural differences that exist in a city like Toronto, with the number of immigrants, refugees, different types of folks. And the TCCS, the Toronto Community Crisis Service, has been tasked to, the way they refer to it is to be able to respond culturally appropriately. And so, do you see that in other places in the world where there's a desire to find middle ground? Or is that something unique to what we see here in Toronto?
It's in other parts of the world, in the States as well too. It's also something that's emerging. Every human being has implicit bias, and it's the idea that we all have our preconceived notions, our perspectives. So I can see somebody and assume that, okay, this person may not be educated, may not be rich, or may be very much archaic in their perspective. That's implicit bias. So having that infrastructure in Toronto, like the TCC, as you mentioned, is important because when you have somebody facing a crisis, the person that's responding needs to be aware of all the factors at hand and also say, you know what, I may have this bias, but what is at hand? What is facing me, or who is facing me rather?
And the bias of those who respond.
Important.
Right? If you've only ever responded to emergency calls that include a limited number of faith groups or a limited number of people from certain parts of the world, your understanding of what's happening in the family and in the social dynamic of the situation, it's not possible actually for you to know.
True. In the same way, I was telling a friend this, that I've had different interactions with people from professional life to personal settings to social settings as well. And it's very easy to conclude that a group of people are like this based on one or two interactions.
Yeah.
And that's a disservice. The same way, for example, I would hate for somebody to say, oh, Tegan is Nigerian American, so, oh, he is this way. Like, you need to know the person, have your data, have your encounters, have your research, and then come to a conclusion that, okay, this individual is like this. And just because I see you right here, being a white male, doesn't mean that I can conclude that this is who David is.
Stereotyping leads to implicit bias no matter what.
It does.
Right? No matter what.
It does.
It's interesting. I don't know if you've been paying much attention to TikTok over the last couple of weeks, but there has been an interesting thing on TikTok. Have you heard about it? About gingers?
I've heard about it, yes.
So over the last number of weeks, there's been a movement on TikTok between a large number of people in the Black community and a large number of people who are gingers on TikTok to say that gingers are now Black. I didn't know quite what to make of it at first. I've been embraced and loved and care about lots of people in the Black community, but I've never had any of them tell me that I was Black before. What do you think?
Well, to be honest, I've always thought gingers were based on a physical trait or like a complexion or physical look. And it's very interesting to see because it seems like the embodiment of a ginger is based on character or based on how somebody perceives themselves. So it's interesting. I saw a couple of videos.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting, but I still want to ask you, who is a ginger? What is a ginger? Because even now, I haven't done the work to know who a ginger is. So
Ginger's
what we
really
describe
the hair, right? It's about the red hair.
Okay.
And for a long time, ginger was a way of putting down.
Okay.
It was I don't want to call it a racial slur, but it was a
Got it.
it was a way of putting people down. And what I've heard from a number of people in the Black community is that they're just learning about the way gingers have been treated as a part of the white community.
Wow.
And have a deep sense of empathy for us.
So is it like albinism or is it like sort of a different thing? How do you...
I think the original video that came out, someone was saying that freckles are really rooted in African origin and a bunch of things. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But I think that was the original video. I think what it's become is an empathetic, loving embrace by the Black community to a group of people who've been bullied in their life a lot of the time to say, you're one of us.
I mean, I lived in California for quite a bit and I've never come across a Black ginger, but I'm sure, who knows where they are? Maybe in Texas, maybe in Arkansas.
Well, you know what? If
Vancouver?
the Black community wants to say I'm Black, I'll take it.
That would not be coming from me, but if other Black people think so, hey,
why not? But I will say that in my experience, there is no community that is able to identify and empathize more about being oppressed and marginalized and othered as the Black community is, and anyone in the Black community who after all of that is willing to reach out to another group and say you belong. I got lots of time for that.
So if you're a ginger and you see somebody that has the same hair texture and color, are you like, that's my ginger friend? How does that work?
You know, I don't think that.
Okay.
So, I do own a clothing company. It's Authentic Ginger, so I'm happy to, but I think what I know when I meet another ginger, I tend to know that they've been bullied in their life, right? It is their experience.
Because among Black men, there's this like nod that we do, that, hey, what's up, man? It's like, it's not spoken, but it's there.
My partner in the field for TCCS, I used to work for the Toronto Community Crisis Service. His name was Dawood. And everywhere we went, he would get the nod. And I was amazed by it, actually. It was, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. You said you've been in Canada for the last few years, and we've just changed government here. Not changed parties, but we overthrew the government and put the same guys in power again. But no longer with our friend Justin Trudeau, who was leading for a whole decade. We now have Mark Carney at the helm. Formerly the head of the Bank of England. multi-millionaire himself. I'm not sure how he's that different than the conservatives, but what do you think? What do you see as a global citizen living here in Toronto? What do you think of the future of Canada under Mark Carney?
So even when I am in the States and even when I go back and forth, how do I put this? The current administration in the US is very much a hot button administration. And for the most part, a lot of people who voted for Mark Carney voted for him based on the fact that they feel that he's the best to handle Donald Trump. But for anybody that may be liberal or conservative, the question is, when you think of Canada, and I hear this all the time, and I think of all the times that people say, oh, back then in Toronto or back then in Vancouver, living in Canada was actually worth living. So, for example, you could afford groceries, like you could own a home, you could have a job. So the notion of Canadian exceptionalism or the Canadian dream, what does that look like?
It's different than it used to, isn't it?
But yeah, and also with immigration, also with lack of competition as well too, you ask yourself, like, is there sort of like not just the foreign relations aspect, or is there an actual agenda to say, you know what, here's the vision I have for Canada in 2027, and here's what I want to do all through. I think one of the things that Trudeau couldn't sort of handle towards the end of his administration was the public smear. It seemed like everybody was just against Trudeau. It was like, oh, why is Canada not doing well? Trudeau this, Trudeau that. So
we tend as Canadians to throw out governments after about 10 years almost no matter what, right? And there is some wisdom to that, because I have an 11-year-old and I try to teach him real things, and power corrupts eventually, right? Like you don't want the same people in power for too long. And I had lots of time for Mr. Trudeau. I think he brought lots of good things to Canada. I think in the end, Canadians were tired of him. I think that's the truth. And they were tired of what came with him, which was scandal sometimes, right? It is what it is. And Mark Carney, I think, embodies kind of what I don't like about Mark Carney and what I do like about Mark Carney are actually the same thing. It's the father knows best thing, right? It's like we're bringing in the old man to kind of regulate the ship. And I don't know. I don't actually know if that's what we need. I don't know if Mark Carney delivers us the kind of future Canadian experience. I appreciated what you said about Canadian exceptionalism there, and that is the Canada that I've always dreamed of. I'm not sure that's where we're headed. What do you think?
Mark Carney is coming in a very dicey time with all these tariffs. So to see this 25% being imposed on goods, that's already a huge factor he has to work against. That's number one. But I also think of sort of, the way in which he can create a legacy for himself is you have a very strong personality, a very strong leader who some people hate, who some people love. Yeah. And he's going to find the way to be the most first-class, exceptional, world-class diplomat. And who knows?
It certainly seemed that way in the Oval Office a couple weeks ago, didn't it? He had a humility about him that was also larger than life, which is not easy to do. I'll tell you, it's not easy to do, especially with a man like Donald Trump. And so it was not unimpressive. I won't lie about that. Whether he can hold this government for long, we'll see in our system how long it can work out for him. But we'll see. Yeah,
I saw online that it will cost the average Canadian household like $2,000 a year with all these tariffs going on.
Yep.
But it's interesting to see, because whenever I go to the grocery store and I see all these Canada products, it's like, wait, where are all these coming from? It seems like now it's like made for Canada by Canadians, purchase these products first, and the American products are like pushed to the side. Even tourism, when you think about tourism, that's now sort of like the U.S. is literally pleading for Canadians to come to the U.S.
Yeah, no, well, their president wants us to become the U.S. So it's an interesting thing. Your 3 degrees.
It's a long story.
I would love to. It's NYU.
So
Penn.
So I'm a graduate of Duke University, NYU, and Penn, and then I got my PhD from the University of Pittsburgh.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And all the degrees. Tell me what they're all in.
So public health and history and philosophy, But overall, throughout my career, I focus a lot on like public health, so global health. So whenever I'm not doing media, I tend to go back to countries that need resources to be mobilized. So I've worked on issues like HIV/AIDS, neglected tropical diseases, malaria, water, sanitation, and hygiene. I'm all about getting the resources and ensuring that people can have their lives be better.
If you could do one thing to change the world around HIV/AIDS, poverty, malaria, what would be the one thing that we could do?
I don't want to say promote anarchy, but a lot of times it seems that the best way to get this level of progress is by hearing from communities. Because even as a professional, even as somebody that works in these settings, there's a lot of bureaucracy that happens. So I would love for a model that allows communities to control the resources, enables them to be accountable as well too, and can also, promote their overall well-being.
Self-determination and accountability.
Yeah, but also you also need professionals as well too. So you can't just say community go this way and that way, because even with communities,
that's where the accountability comes in.
But also even communities, there can also be a degree of discrimination as well within group and between groups.
Fair.
Fair.
So I was reading your bio and I was looking at some of the work you've done in the past, and I know that you have made contributions, NBC.
Yes. When I lived in New York, I used to work on The View, The Rachel Ray Show, NBC in Pittsburgh, BET as well.
What's Rachel Ray like?
Good. Lots of food, lots of also rules on how you can eat that food too. But I really love that, because what I do now, all that experiences gave me sort of a first-hand account of like, oh, here's how to have a conversation, just seeing how production works. Here's how to do marketing. Here's how to do like a pitch. So for example, let's say I'm doing a pitch right now about you, for example. I'll be like, welcome to our show. I'm with David. If you want answers to all the questions you have, regardless of where you're from, David is the one. What are you waiting for? We'll see you soon.
I'm going to clip that and use it all day.
I know. I mean, it's rough, but funny. On the spot. So yeah.
Very nice. Yeah. Very nice. What was the most surprising thing you ever saw on set?
On sets, everything is a performance. Everything is literally a performance. Yeah. So whenever you see a celebrity backstage or literally on sets, it's a performance. You do have connections that people make, on sets. The team is very much solid and very much tight. Like The View, for example, that's a world-class show. That's ABC News. The facts are fact-checked.
Yeah.
So it's hardcore, it's live, but everything is a performance. So even the time that you have to comment from all the stars like Joy Behar, Whoopi Goldberg, who's an EGOT, it's literally a performance. And it makes you sort of like think about how much effort goes into all these shows, but also to carve out your own lane as well too, because nobody wants to be a replica of somebody else. So you can have people that you admire and people that you really find fascinating. But what lessons can you learn from them that can allow you to create your own lane? So yeah, that's what I say.
Do you think that might be one of the distinctions between like podcasting and TV is the level of realism, I guess, that we can have podcasting just sitting together in a real conversation that's not being produced in NBC studios with, a very specific idea and box that it's supposed to go in?
I mean, the notion of podcast has always been there all through. I mean, from the kitchen table to like everyday conversations, everyday bros talking, girlfriends talking, it's always been there. But what I find so interesting is that there's this general push for everybody to talk. And I think that's the beauty of podcasts now, because you're seeing people have conversations, whether it's about relationships, career, spirituality, whatever it may be, you're seeing that more and more. And if we can literally talk more and more, I feel that a lot of our issues can be resolved. But yeah, the conversations are very much organic. They're very much not as polished, but we do have some polished podcasts that always want like those clickbaits. So
for sure. But if you look at like, everybody wants to use Joe Rogan as an example because it's easy, but he'll sit down for 2 or 3 hours with someone to have the kind of, you can only have a raw conversation like that over a significant amount of time.
True.
Right? It can't be produced in the 12-minute segment that hits all the boxes the way you want it to. And I do think there's something unique about that wasn't really the understood norm. The norm was you would kind of agree to what you're going to talk about and then put out in a kind of formed way. Folks who come and sit down with me on the Blue Eyed Devil podcast, for the most part, they have no idea what I'm going to ask them. And, they're going to dance the way they're going to dance based on the questions that come.
I think also when you think of just podcasts alone, people go to podcasts for conversations, and whereas TV, people a lot of times go there for the personality. So you may say, oh, this host is fantastic. I'm watching because of this host. Whereas the podcast, yes, the panel may be good, they may be great, but you're not going there just for them. You're going there because you want to actually hear the conversation.
I got you.
So it's less about the ego and the personality and more about the art of talking.
I heard you earlier. You said that something important to Tegan is to do unto others.
Yeah.
As they would do unto you.
Yeah.
That's scripture.
True.
Yeah. Is that a background for you?
I believe in God. Like without God, I'm not like alive. So that's.
Tell me about that. What does that mean?
I mean, God is literally the major force in my life overall.
Okay. That's not small then.
That's not small. No matter what, no matter how great your ideas or your visions are, you do need to believe in God. There's a larger power at play. I grew up Christian. I was raised Christian. Nobody's perfect, but I do believe in God all through. And I've realized that life is so short that even when I think of sort of like having my way, I think about things in a way that, okay, if I were to make David upset, what would he say? Mm-hmm. What's the reason for having that much anger? Or do I have to apologize? So really about the golden rule, all about, doing unto others as you want them to do unto you is important for me. Yeah. And a lot of times if you think about the hate, the injustice, the prejudice that's out there, it's all because people's self-interests are at the top of the leaderboard versus saying, you know what, I don't have to like you, but I can respect you. Mm-hmm. So,
well, it's trying to see people the way God sees them.
True.
Really, yeah.
But also we're humans. Let's be real. Like we don't know when our next day on earth is. So it's a miracle that we're all alive to wake up the next day. So yes. I would hate for my last day on earth to be being pissed off at somebody or trying to be a angry person, or no, it's not worth it. Peace of mind is important. Money can buy you peace of mind.
Yes.
Career can buy you peace of mind. So
all that seems like it's rooted in a depth of love, as most people who profess the Christian faith have. So who does Tegan Mosugu love?
Himself. Himself.
All day, eh?
Himself. Let me tell you. Family, friends, everything, they're good and important, but self-love is important as well. Yeah. End of the day, only you can hold yourself tight. Yeah.
So. Why is that? Why is self-love so important? And I don't disagree, but why is self-love so important?
Well, for my 30 plus years now, and I think of like just life in general, the best times whereby I'm at my most optimal is when I am loving myself heavily. When I know that, okay, I need a break. When I know that's, okay, Tegan, you need to focus on your goals or relax, or the world doesn't revolve around your timeline. Like, take it easy, like you're doing your best. Self-love is key. It doesn't mean that you should sort of like only think about you, but you need to love yourself more. People go and come from your life, even like family, friends, spouses, all through.
I appreciate what you're saying a great deal, actually, and I think more people need to engage in this conversation. I don't know if you know, I wrote a book a few years ago. It's called Redemptive Trauma, and I think it's the 5th chapter of the book. It's a chapter on love, and I talk about how the English language is just one of the most primitive when it comes to the language of love. The idea that the word love is the same word for the way I love my partner, I love pizza, I love my child. That's and I talked about the Greek words for love, agape, storge, philos, and eros, and how understanding these different types of love actually helps us engage in relationship. And relationship with ourselves, right? And you're not talking about an indulgent love. You're talking about a self-empowering.
Self-empowerment.
Yeah.
Wake up, and before I came here, I had music on blast. I had a nice breakfast. I had a nice walk.
I love it.
Yeah.
take care of you so
care
you
for
can take
yourself.
care of other people.
Because there's only so many emails you can check, only so many calls you can do. Like, end of the day, people have to sleep as well too. You can't always be doing the same thing over and over and over again. Only you know your life. Nobody can control or tell you what to do.
Preach. Rapid fire?
Sure. Ooh, how rapid? Let's go.
All right. Duke or pen?
Oh no. So, ooh. Well, Duke is like my first love.
Okay.
So Duke will always have a place in my heart. Penn was where I was at my very, very best. So it's a tie. One is in Philly, one is in Durham, North Carolina. It's a tie.
Blue Jays or Maple Leafs?
Blue Jays. I went to a game once. I think it was with the Boston Red Sox or something like that. Yeah.
Good.
It was nice.
All right.
Yeah.
Coke or Pepsi?
None. Can we say that? I mean, but Coke Zero. I saw something that said that there's some sweetener that's in Coke Zero that makes you want to have more and more. So I found myself trying to I was craving Coke Zero. Like in the morning, I'm like, this is weird. So I just stopped doing Coke Zero. Just drink water.
Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Soccer or football?
You're the same. Tricky question, right?
That was on purpose. Who do you support in the World Cup?
Nine Jam boy. So that's about it.
Gotta do it.
That's about it. Oh, and my Black Stars. I love my Black Stars as well.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah. You are a guest on the podcast because you reached out to me, right? And I appreciated that a great deal. What is it about the Blue Eyed Devil podcast that wanted you to get in the chair?
One of the things I saw about your podcast is the breadth and the width of conversations that you have.
Yeah.
Find it to be so unique. Love the fact that you also have your son talk as well too. That is very
Raising
classy.
Dad, the podcast.
Yep. Also, the guests are very much unique, and there's a level of thoughtfulness with your podcast. You're not just about clicks or just about viral moments. Like having conversations all through. I love the work that you do, like in the community as well, speaking up and speaking out as well too. So I was like, you know what? Meet David.
I wasn't really compliment fishing, but I got some there, and I really do appreciate that, Tegan. That means a great deal, and awesome. I got a lot of respect for you, awesome. And I enjoyed sitting down with you. This has been good. This has been good.
I feel like I've seen you before, but my first time meeting you, I feel like next time we will have some food and a good banter.
Maybe we do a series. You want to do a series? We can talk about that. Yeah. All right, man. It's good to see you. I got one more thing before we close up. With everything that's going around on TikTok. Ooh. What would you think about wearing an authentic?
I'm ready.
Yeah?
I'm ready.
All right, it's all you, man.
I'm ready.
It's all you.
Thank you so much, David.
You're more than welcome. You're more than welcome. Authentic Ginger Clothing Company.
Check it out.
Yeah.
Check it out.
It is good to have all of you with us again for the Blue Eyed Devil podcast, streaming on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google Podcasts, which is now just YouTube. We have had a nice and very informative conversation today with Tegan Mosugu, graduate of NYU, Penn, Duke, and a global citizen born in Nigeria and traveling around the world. Be well and take care on the journey.